We're so excited to be here today. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our panel on scaling up sales. I am Kirsty Boyle. I am the general manager of Envirosoft. It's a constellation software company. We are world leaders in emissions management software and ESG reporting. So first off, I just want to thank Craig and the organizers of this fantastic multi-day Innovation Rodeo event. It's full of world-class speakers, and this panel is no exception. I'm really honored to be hosting it. And so, yeah, we've got this panel full of global thought leaders on sales and how to scale sales teams. And we're going to be talking about tools and resources that are available to help you as the audience members, as you're game planning on how to grow the next billion-dollar business here in Canada and globally. So first, before we get started, we actually have Carla here from Alberta Innovates, and she is going to talk and say a few words on a really great grant program that I know some companies have taken advantage of, and it's been a game changer for them. So Carla, tell us a bit more about the grant program.
Yes, thanks. Thank you for introducing me. And I also wanted to thank Bow Valley College for organizing this, and Craig as well. It's a great event that we have here. Hopefully everybody's able to take some nuggets away and gain traction in their companies. I have actually 3 programs to talk to you about today because I don't want to forget some other ones that are there to help you scale and grow and get traction in your business. Alberta Innovates, we're mandated to catalyze research and innovation. So we construct these programs so that we can help you ramp up your business and help the economy in these challenging times. So part of our offering is we have a micro voucher program that is up to $10,000. And then we have a voucher program for up to $100,000 to assist companies with hiring a service provider or a contractor to help them with their business. So you might want to look at those if you're considering. You should be in the Startup Commons journey portion at the committing and validating stage of your business for those programs. The third one that everybody is excited about that is super helpful at this sales part is the Commercialization Associates program. So this program was created to provide high potential, high growth, small and medium-sized companies with the assistance of talented individuals who have business skills required to develop and launch new services and products into the marketplace. So these eligible companies should have a novel, viable technology, strong management, and a reasonably validated product market fit. So still maybe working with that. Alberta Innovates will provide up to $112,000 per year for up to 2 years to hire this highly trained resource on a full-time or a part-time basis. So the amounts that we do award depend on the qualifications of the associate chosen by the company. So the associate could fill gaps in the company in the areas of product management, sales and marketing strategies, business development, growth strategies, and client relationship management. An important criteria for funding is having an actionable milestone-based plan that will help the company gain traction. So be able to test and anchor that product market fit and get to scaling. So for all 3 of these programs, the company is required to provide 25% matching cash contributions. And the long-term outcomes we're looking for is to build a globally competitive company that can scale into that next large enterprise for Alberta. So if you're at that validating stage with your technology business, connect with an Alberta Innovates technology development advisor who will work with you and provide some coaching and networking, as well as further access to these programs that I've mentioned. To find your technology development advisor, if you don't have one already, go to our website, Alberta Innovates, and look for the Technology Development Advisor program or any of the programs I've mentioned. So Commercialization Associate, or micro voucher or voucher, and you can search our website for those. So with that, enjoy the rest of your afternoon and gain all the valuable nuggets of information from this wonderful panel. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Carla. Yeah, those are absolutely great programs if you haven't looked into them. And having filled out a few of those grant applications myself, they are actually pretty simple compared to other programs. So great resource to take advantage of. Yeah, with that, looking forward to diving right in. So we're going to be doing mini masterclass formats, almost like mini fireside chats with our global sales experts. And first up is Doug Landis. So Doug is a growth partner at Emergence Capital, being involved with the top SaaS companies that MCAP has invested in. He's gathered remarkable insights into the critical steps necessary to build a multi-billion-dollar business. And he's here to share some of those secrets with us today. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm great.
Awesome.
Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody. Brandon, great to see you live or pseudo live. I feel like you are like two ships passing in the night. Katie,
likewise.
Katie, I want to be in LA actually as of this weekend. So whoop, whoop.
Let's go.
Yeah, totally. And Liz and Colleen, great to see you both.
Awesome. Well, Doug, where are you joining us from today? When I had our call, you were making me really jealous. You were overlooking the ocean.
Yeah, I'm down in Santa Cruz, California right now, about 100 feet away from the surf. So I typically take my calls out on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. One, it keeps me calm when I have to deal with stressful situations. And two, it's just a nice change of pace. I'm not gonna lie, Zoom fatigue is real, everybody. It is absolutely real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Changing your environment is really important.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about sales tools and resources.
Yes.
Doug, what are some of your go-to tools for scaling sales teams?
So let me give a little context. And Brandon, sorry, I'm not going to actually loop in Seamless, but I'm excited to hear what you have to say in particular because I've been following you for a while. So a little context. I'm an investor. Yes, I work for a tier one venture firm, but at the end of the day, I'm a sales professional at heart. I have been my whole life. I spend my whole life focusing on how do we actually make anybody that's customer facing smarter, better, and faster what they do to create a better experience. Ultimately, that's going to lead to closed revenue. But to me, that's an offshoot of what if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, that's invariably what ends up happening. We do as a firm, we only invest in B2B enterprise SaaS companies. We're the first investor in Zoom, the first investor in Salesforce and Yammer and Box and Viva and ServiceMax and SuccessFactors. And we only invest around the A and the B. So it's super early stage. So company has about $1 million in revenue, trying to scale to 10 to 100. And now look at Zoom, they're what, 2 billion? Something crazy like that. It's kind of bananas. And so my point of view is I'm going to give you some suggestions for tools and technology. If I were to start a company right now, if I were in Brandon's shoes and I were just getting started, what would my tech stack want? What would I recommend to my leadership team as far as the go-to-market tech stack goes? And this is a way, of course, you got to have some sort of core CRM, whether that's Salesforce or Microsoft. That's kind of table stakes, right? Just like you have to have some sort of marketing automation platform, whether that's HubSpot or Marketo or I don't even know what's out there anymore. What's the newest one these days? Because I don't really pay attention to marketing automation. No offense to everybody else, but in particular, so if I were starting, the first product that I would invest in is a product called Burn Rate. It's called burnrate.io. It's a little seed stage company, and the reason for that is one of the single biggest challenges that most CEOs and VPs of sales struggle with is building out their capacity model. Basically, how do you build an operating plan for your sales organization? If you're at $1 million in revenue and we give you funding at your Series A and you're trying to get to 4 million and then 12 million, because the whole model is 3-3-2-2-2, and then after 12 million, 24, 48, right, 96 in IPO, you've got to plan that. And unfortunately, what most people get wrong is hiring in the early stages. You either hire the wrong person at the wrong time, or you don't hire enough, so you don't have enough butts in seats, and therefore you don't have the capacity, the revenue capacity to actually get to your targets. Conversely, over-hiring is also another problem because now you're burning through cash. especially if you're hiring some of the wrong people. So what burn rate's going to help you do is really think through and map out your model, your whole capacity model. And one of the interesting things that they point out is when you need to start sourcing your candidates, we automatically think as a sales leader, we're like, oh, next quarter, I've got to add 10 more headcount. Well, guess what? You should have been sourcing them, 3 months ago, because you've got to source, you've got to interview, you've got to hire, you've got to onboard. And so you can't just expect to get that revenue out of them right out of the gate. So the first tool I'd recommend is burn rate to help me plan. The next thing I'm going to do is, now that I'm hiring folks, I've got to think about how I'm going to onboard them. And there's two strategies and two tools that I'm going to use. The first one is called Level Jump, and they're actually Canadian, to my fellow Canadians out there. It's a product that's built natively on the Salesforce platform. Super slick. My good friend David started the company, ex-Salesforcer. We used to work together. And the idea is basically they help you to manage all of the activities necessary that you need to accomplish when you're onboarding new employees, especially new sales folks. There's a slew. Typically, what do people do? You've got a Google sheet. They got a bunch of check boxes with links, right? And maybe those links are to files, and it's kind of all over the place. But what really matters is performance. How can I link the things that I'm asking you to do as you're onboarding to how you're actually performing, right? We usually talk about the metrics of onboarding of time to first deal, self-sourced pipeline, number of demos completed, et cetera. But that's not usually connected back to the activities because your activities are in a spreadsheet, right? And so what Level Jump has done is basically merge those. And so you can actually truly tell what kind of output you're getting from the input that you're demanding while you're onboarding them. So Level Jump is my second tool. The third tool I would recommend, now, of course, I'm going to be biased because this is one of our investments, but it's a company called Chorus, and they do conversational intelligence, right? The reason for that, and that's so important, whether you choose Chorus or Gong or Exec Vision or even use SalesLoft's Note Ninja, is you want to capture the conversations that are actually happening. Far too often, if I'm a new sales leader coming into an organization, the first thing I want to know is is everybody on message? In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and be like, hey, tell me, what do you say to customers? And I'm going to start to create scenarios so I can better understand if we're on message or off message. And I want to better understand what are our A players saying that maybe some of our bottom performers are missing out on. And so I want a way to actually better understand what's happening out there in the field. In particular right now, given this work from home environment, I have to have this. This is no longer a nice to have. This is an absolute must have. Plus, I can use all those recordings for onboarding. You want to know how to run a first conversation. You want to know how to handle objections. You want to know how to negotiate. You want to know how to deposition our competitors. Here you go. Here's your library, and you can experience the conversation more so than just doing it live on your own, which half the time we know is a bit of a miss. It tends to fail. All right, so I got burn rate, I got Level Jump, I've got Chorus. The next thing I need some sort of knowledge management solution, because as we're growing and scaling, I got to make sure that everything's going to be stored and accessible. If I put it in Box or Dropbox, that's fine, but usually I have to go fish for it. And the problem with most intranets is I've got to actively go look for information. I want information to come directly to me. So that's where I'm going to introduce Guru, my knowledge management solution. That's a Chrome extension, also one of our companies, but they push information to you based on what you need. So if I'm filling in a field on Salesforce and say, this is an oil and gas company, all of a sudden a card pops up and says, here's what you need to know about oil and gas. And here's your point of view about oil and gas. I'm like, sweet. Again, helps me to onboard and scale faster. Of course, I would be remiss if, as I'm building an organization, I haven't thought about how we're going to engage with our prospects. And so the next tool I'm going to go out and buy is a sales engagement platform. Of course, I'm going to recommend SalesLoft because that's also one of our companies. It doesn't really matter what you use, but the reality is you need, look, for every deal, every deal over $10,000, there's 6 to 8 people involved in the buying decision. And it takes at least 8 to 10 touches in order to get somebody to respond. That's 60 to 80 touches for each account. How do you manage all that while you're trying to manage opportunities mid-cycle and also end-cycle? And so you need a platform that's going to help you. And then lastly, as the company starts to grow and scale, you have to start thinking about what can we do from an operational perspective to make sure that the sales organization scales efficiently And so I'm going to look for things like how do we institutionalize territories, as an example, or deal with crazy, complicated comp plans or quotas. The reality is most people just trying to do 5 to 7x quota to OTE or OTE to quota, right? Well, you're not taking into consideration gross margin. You're not taking into consideration the other support people like your SDRs or sales engineers that are supporting you. So you need a vehicle to keep all this in check as a reminder. So there's a great product out there called fullcast.io. It's a little heavyweight, but it's got everything you need from an operational side. And then the last thing that I would say is early stages, you got to institutionalize a sales process or a sales methodology. Most people choose Medic or MedPick or some iteration of it, or pieces of Sandler, right? I'm going to take the upfront contract and the pain funnel. But how do you actually get that into Salesforce and make it useful? There's a company called Close Plan that I just found out about. We used to Seamless, the founder and I used to work together at Salesforce a long time ago. It's another native Salesforce integration, but it allows you to operationalize your sales process inside of Salesforce natively. And they also do org charting, which is really difficult, right? If 6 to 8 people involved in the decision, how do I know who's who and who the mobilizer is versus who's going to actually sign the check versus who are the gatekeepers that are going to be really difficult? That's my stack. That's what I'm going to go budget for outside of sales, LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Salesforce. I probably need to do some lead routing, like a Lead IQ or a Chili Piper as well. But I might at the core, those 7 products are what I want. Done. Mic drop.
That's great. I think I was really, I found it interesting that you were approaching it as a sales tech stack. I mean, so often we look at the software side like that, but not sales. So it's an interesting way to look at it. I'm curious, you listed several tools there that all sound very useful, but if you could only choose 2, if you were limited, top 2, what would they be?
Yeah, so that's how I used to ask myself this question once a month. And this is kind of morbid, but I would say to myself, like, if my CFO put a gun to my head back in the days when I was working at Box and said, look, you only have 2 tools outside of Salesforce, because that's the system of record for the whole company, and outside of the LinkedIn Sales Navigator, because that's basically we'll call it the system of contacts for the sales organization. What would you choose? And I think for me, I think the 2 things that I would choose is I would choose SalesLoft, because SalesLoft they went out and bought a company, Costello, that actually gives you some better opportunity management capabilities. They have Note Ninja, which gives you some conversational intelligence. And it's the core sales engagement platform, because I need a way to manage everything that I'm doing. And it's really tightly integrated into Salesforce. And then I think the other thing that I would do is I would probably invest in Guru, because getting access to knowledge and information is typically one of the hardest things that one of the things that people struggle with the most, because since we're not in an office, I can't go to Kevin and just tap him on the shoulder and be like, hey, dude, what do you do for this? Mm-hmm. I need that information to come to me rather than me have to go fish for it. So those are the 2 things that I would recommend.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great insights. And please follow along in the comments. I see Craig has been very helpful, including the links to these resources. And as well, if you guys have any questions, pop them in there. I'm keeping an eye on them. That was fantastic, Doug. Thank you. And I think another key takeaway is if there's anyone in the audience developing a startup that could contribute to the sales tech stack, Doug's the guy to pitch to. Grab him from AMA.
Wait, time out. I probably get, I don't know, 1 or 2 a week. So just make sure if you're going to reach out to me, you've got a very, very good narrative.
Okay, good advice. Awesome. Well, next up we have Colleen Francis. So Colleen is the owner of Engage Selling, LinkedIn guru, who I actually have been following for some time now as a fan in the background. So I'm thrilled to actually meet you, Colleen.
I'm here.
And even more excited to hear what you have to share.
I like having stalkers on my LinkedIn page, so you're quite welcome to be there.
I picked up many great tips. So for anyone, please follow all of our panelists. I think now that I'm connected with all of you, I am really enjoying your content. So yeah, Colleen, how are you doing? Where are you calling in from?
I'm good. I'm in Ottawa, somewhat quarantined, because my husband was down in Florida for a few weeks managing a renovation on our condo there, and he came back, and the government has thrown us into quarantine again. So I'm I'm hoping that I don't get like a 97-pound dog come running in here because it's close to her walk time out east.
Yeah, we all have that.
The joys of Zoom, right? Zoom.
So I'm curious. So say I am a founder, entrepreneur, and I've gotten some traction, and now I'm looking to scale my sales. What advice do you have for me?
So three things actually. I've got two pieces of technology that I think are important for scaling, and also more of a process. There's my Canadian accent for those of you who don't recognize it. That I think is critical for scaling because it's going to help you determine where there are some levels of efficiency. And frankly, even today we do this old school. I was on a 3-hour call with a client yesterday who's scaling, and we spent the whole time in Excel. Holy moly. But just the way it works. So from a technology perspective, there's two things that I think are really important for scaling and scaling quickly. And Doug, you had made a comment, I think it was, I can't remember which company you mentioned, but from a learning and readiness platform, Alego is the tool that I really love. And what I love about it and where my clients have used it really successfully is it allows sellers to quickly upload videos about wins and losses and sales situations that are very specific. And then it can be tied directly to opportunities in your CRM. So if I know I'm at a specific sales stage competing against somebody with a type of buyer who's a title, a video can be brought up to tell me how to execute correctly, propers of the sales process, what objections I might be going to face. And so it's that just-in-time learning. And I think that helps the salesperson scale up more quickly. Also, it helps the experienced people succeed more quickly because they have that just-in-time nugget as opposed to throwing the team in a training environment for 3 days and hoping that they remember something at the end of the day. So I love that tool. We're finding really great results. The other one that I like is a technology called Gong. And I think it's very similar to what, Doug, you had mentioned with Chorus, maybe the competitive product. I'm not sure. I hate the name. I got to tell you, every time I hear it, I think, Gong, that just sounds so negative. But again, I'm a huge fan. And when I'm coaching my clients, of using the best people on the sales team to train the rest of the salespeople. And one of the ways we do that is by making sure we understand what the best salespeople are doing. It was fascinating to me with a startup I was working with here in Ottawa. They had this process where they would, take inbound leads and someone would call them. They'd set up a demo. Marketing had built this, huge 45-minute demo for them, and they would close business. And they couldn't understand why one seller was outperforming everybody by, like a large factor, like 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, just constantly overperforming. And when the sales manager finally had evidence of what she was doing, we found that she had a 20-minute demo. She had completely gotten rid of what marketing said to do, the messaging, the key points, and tailored it down to exactly what the customer needed, chopped it by 20 minutes, and was that much more productive. But we wouldn't have known that had we not started listening to calls. And as a manager, you can't listen to all the calls live because you just don't have the bandwidth. So being able to listen to chunks and then play them back, listen for keywords and document what's working is really critical to scaling.
Yeah, great insights.
And then lastly, this sales process, or I don't even know, it's not really a sales process, it's a tool. It's super old fashioned. It has been around for years. It is not my proprietary technology or even formula, but the good old fashioned sales velocity that nobody ever uses. Now I don't work with, all SaaS companies or all technology companies. I work with a lot of traditional industries as well. But it doesn't really matter. I was working with one of the fastest growing companies in Ottawa, not Shopify, but one of the other ones, and they'd never even heard of sales velocity. And I think this is really critical for a lot of reasons. And if the people out there, if you guys don't know what sales velocity is, I'm going to assume the panel does. it's really a simple calculation of the number of opportunities in the pipeline multiplied by the average value of those opportunities, or volume, however you manage value. It could be margin, total contract value, whatever, multiplied by your win rate as a percentage, and then divide the whole thing by the length of your sales cycle. And it gives you the daily contribution of that seller to your organization every single day of the year, right? I mean, most CRMs don't calculate in weekends and holidays, so it's a 365 day cycle. So it tells you now what the value is per person. And what you can do is compare those values for all of the team to see who's higher and lower and why, because you can compare their metrics. You can also use it to multiply out by however many days there are left in the year, or 365, to see what the run rate is. And what we do with clients who are looking to scale is we try to figure out what the right velocity is and then track on a weekly basis. And some of my clients have built this into their CRMs in a real-time basis, whether that seller is actually building velocity and accelerating their contribution to the organization. Because if you take that calculation, combine it with what they've closed today, you can actually see, are they moving towards their annual goal, beyond it, or have they fallen below it? And you can course correct really quickly. So the real-time data gives you access to make sharp right, sharp left-hand turns as you need to.
Well, that's great insights. And a common theme in terms of the knowledge sharing, the just-in-time learning, benchmarking, and tracking. I'm curious.
Well, what's so interesting to me is so many founders think of sales as this, like, well, it's sort of this dark art. Like, I'm just going to trust my guys over there to do it. I have no idea what's going on. I'm kind of scared of those guys, and they don't pay attention to the science of it. And I think in early stages and as you're scaling, the numbers and the data are more important than the art of the sale. If you don't understand what the numbers are and what it actually takes, what the pathway is that it takes to get to the scale that you want to be at, then it doesn't matter how good your product is or how good your messaging is.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It can be intimidating applying a science to sales and holding sales accountable. Simply putting the tools in place isn't enough. You have to really use them. Do you have any tips on how can sales, or how can managers and founders use the tools to the best of their ability to get the results they need?
Well, they have to use them regularly, right? So they need to create an environment, and I think Doug said it, where Salesforce is sort of like the dashboard for the company. Or, I was at Dreamforce one year, and Mark Benioff, held up his phone, and he's like, I can run my business off my phone, right? The dashboard is so well integrated. When the salesperson, the manager, the leader have to go to that space to get whatever information they're looking for, you force compliance right away because everyone has to go there, and then you gain commitment because everybody realizes just how powerful it is. But if they're not using these tools on a daily basis, or if they're not well integrated together, then it's very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. And it's about that, getting everyone's buy-in and seeing the results.
Well, and to be fair, I truly believe in compliance before commitment. It's very hard to get buy-in unless you forced compliance to begin with. Maybe I work with too many companies that have old school sales guys who hate technology. I don't know. But I just have found that salespeople will always try to work out of the system if they can. They like to be cowboys, right? In some cases, especially those who come in early in a startup. They often get hired because they have that entrepreneurial spirit. They've got that kind of like, hey, just let me at them. I know what to do. I can go, but I'm going to do it my way. And so if we don't force that compliance, and I'm not saying you beat them with a stick, it can be in other ways, then it can be very hard, because what you do not want in a startup, you don't want this in any company, is you hire a core group of salespeople, they become super successful, and they doing it their own way. And then as you grow and scale and you start adding salespeople beneath them, beside them, and then you say, okay, guys, everyone has to use the CRM. Oh, except for, Colleen and Liz and Doug over there, because they've been around a long time and they don't have to do anything. Now, everyone that looks up to those guys is like, well, if they don't have to do it, why should I? And they don't.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, thanks so much, Colleen, for those good insights. And it's a tough job managing a sales team because we can be cowboys. For fitting for the Innovation Rodeo here. Excellent. Well, next up is Kevin Dorsey. He is the Vice President of Inside Sales at Patient Pop and global sales expert. How are you doing today? Where are you calling in from?
So I'm calling in from LA. So, soon to be neighbors with Doug. I've been trying to convince him to move down here for a couple of years. So pretty pumped about that. It's going to be, the city's not ready. Let's just put it that way.
Excellent. Well, continuing in the same vein, when you're helping entrepreneurs and founders and companies as they're scaling up sales, what framework is your go-to in thinking about all the pieces?
So something that I've done for the past, 4 startups now I've been at, now I try to do at my own, but then also coach people on when you're getting started, I call it the 5 Ps. And especially for founders, the order of these Ps is going to be very important, because talking to a lot of founders, the first P they want to talk about is product. And then the second P they want to talk about is price. And the third P they want to talk about is programmers. And then we lose track from there. When you're scaling, you have to get the people side right, which, Doug, mentioned, Liz mentioned as well. Colleen mentioned, you got to get the people right. Then you have to know your prospect. And this is something that I think a lot of founders miss early on, is they know their product inside and out. So often they know so little about the prospect. They know very little about what it actually is to be that prospect, right? So many founders, especially are visionaries, sometimes they're not even their own end user. It wasn't like they were suffering with the problem then created something. They saw an opportunity and they said, I'm going to build something for that. But they don't know what it's like to be an end user. And to what Doug said, they definitely don't know what it's like to be the 6 to 8 people involved in a deal. They might think, well, I was a VP of sales, so I can sell to VP of sales. But then they don't know what it's like to be an SDR manager, a BDR manager, an AE manager, and a sales enablement manager, and a RevOps director. That's a whole new term anyway, right? So they don't know their prospect very well. Once you know the prospect, then you move to the next P, which is the problem. What problem is your product actually solving? Is it actually solving a problem, or is it just something new? Is it just a different way to do the same things? Because if it's not solving a new problem, the people that you're going after, it's not going to resonate. You need to know what problem it's solving and really understand it to like a minute detail of what problem does it actually solve. Then you go to process, right? So if you have the right people, you know the prospect, you know the problem, now you build out your process. This is where you're building your messaging. This is where you're building your onboarding. This is where you're building your emails. This is where you're building your cadences, right? Like now you can actually build your go-to-market process if you've done those first 3 Ps. If you're not, that's also sometimes when you're forced to hire the cavalier salespeople because you didn't take the steps. You didn't go through the process. So now what a lot of companies will do is like, all right, I'm going to hire a rep that knows the prospect. I'm going to hire a rep that knows the problems. And then that's why it doesn't scale, because you didn't build it, right? So now you do. You've got that one cavalier rep that knows medical device sales like the back of their hand. But because you never learned it as a founder, you can't scale it out, right? So you have to have that process next. And it's a process for everything: a hiring process, an onboarding process, a go-to-market process, a firing process. I mean, you have to document everything so it is repeatable as you grow, right? I had an investor say to me one time, word for word, I'll never forget this because this was early on as a VP and it really stuck with me. They said, KD, we don't care if you can do it. We care if you can get 100 other people to do it. We want you for the Rolodex of your process, not the Rolodex of your prospects. And so early on, founders will hire a VP that have a Rolodex of prospects. They have an into the industry, but they don't have a Rolodex of processes, right? That's what an investor is paying for, is that it's repeatable, right? That you can do it over and over again, not just that you can do it when you got 10 people. Doug has no interest in my 10-person startup. He wants that 10 to get to 100, 200, 300, and that only happens if you have a process in place. Now you get to the product. Now you get to the product, and how does that product fit into the process? How does that product fit into the problems that you solve? How does that product fit into the prospect's world? And how does that product fit into with the type of people you're hiring, right? The product actually comes at the bottom there, and it works its way back up. So those are the 5 Ps that I try to take people through. And then I also work with my own teams and look internally, like, where are we off here, right? Is it a people problem? Is it a prospect problem? We don't get it, right? Is it a problem? Does our product actually solve a problem, right? Is it a process problem, or is it now a product problem, right? As a sales guy, very rarely do I blame the product unless I can check with the boxes on all those other things.
Yeah, no, that's a great framework to use. And I think from those that have spoken so far, it's very aligned on processes, very important. I'm not hearing anyone on this panel say just shoot from the hip and trust your instincts.
So I think we need to add another P for Kevin, and that's preach.
Let's go.
So I just noticed in the notes that Craig asked if you could repeat the P's one more time.
Oh, sure. So you have people, prospect, problem, process, product, preach. And then you can put it into a playbook, which then may allow you to pivot, right? Like, I can go all day on this, right? I don't think we have enough time, but I can go all day if we need to, all right? Because that's what will make you profitable and allow your company to pop, and then we can all,
the alliteration generation.
All right? Oh, so here we go. See, this is why LA is not ready for both of us to be in the same town.
I'm curious, what kinds of tools would you recommend, of the ones Doug and Colleen have brought up, or of ones that you're using? Which ones fall in nicely to your Ps?
I mean, if you go back and listen to, because Doug, even though you asked him for 2, he gave you 11. If you listen to the tools that he listed off, it checked all of these boxes, right? He had a tool that helped with people. I think that was full or burn rate, right? Mm-hmm. He had a tool for process, Sales Loft, and Chorus, right? He had a tool for the prospect, right? The guru, so he nailed each one of those 5 Ps with a tool, right? And so also in priority, you need a tool for people. Okay. Are you getting the right people in, and the right amount of people and the right capacity, that you're not setting up make-believe quotas? Because at the same time, when it comes to salespeople, if we don't believe we can hit it, it doesn't matter. So although it always worked, so real quick, founders, I'm going to call you out here just a little bit. It always works in the spreadsheet. It always works in the spreadsheet. Colleen said it, right? Excel all day. You know how many unicorns I've personally built in a spreadsheet? Like I got unicorns for days. It always works there. It doesn't always work in the real world. So if you walk out there with quotas that your team can't hit, you'll watch talented salespeople completely miss the mark because they don't even believe it, right? So having data associated with it. So for me, I have to have something around conversations, right? Especially early on, right? To know like what the prospect is saying, right? I care when I go into a new company, I care way more about what the prospect is saying than the salespeople. I want to hear what the prospect is saying. I want to hear where they say, wow. I want to know the questions that they ask, right? I go over to CS and I interview customers those first 2 to 3 weeks so that I can learn what the prospect is saying.
In their words.
Yes, that's so important.
Not in your marketer's words, the marketing team. But in their words.
If we got marketers on here, and this, I'll use myself as an example. When I showed up at Patient Pop, if you ask someone what Patient Pop did, the way the sales reps responded said, we are an all-in-one practice growth platform. Guess what no doctor has ever said at the end of a 14-hour day shift? They didn't get done dealing with all the surgeries for the day, get home, pour themselves a glass of scotch, sit down, take a deep breath, and go, God, I wish I had an all-in-one practice growth platform. Right. So they don't talk that way. And so you need to learn about the prospect. That's why it's one of the P's, right? So I want to hear that. So I need a call coaching, and then I need a sales process tool. So a Sales Loft, an Outreach, I think Apollo's out there. But I've been on Sales Loft for quite a while now, because also way before I actually had budget for extra tools, I used Sales Loft as my onboarding tool. I created an onboarding cadence in Sales Loft, and that's where I stored the different training modules. Okay, week 2 delivered. Here's your training, right? And so having a process tool allows you actually to do way more than just go to market. I had an onboarding cadence. I had an offboarding cadence. I had a PIP cadence. I had a recognition cadence, just to remind me as a sales leader to reach out to some people and say, hey, have you talked to that hire that you made 3 months ago? I haven't even checked in. So a process tool is my must have. You have to have something to map all these processes out. Otherwise, you're just hoping.
Yep, absolutely. So out of the 5 Ps, I'm curious, where do you find you get the most pushback when you're trying to work on those?
Let's see, the most pushback. I mean, probably process, right? To Colleen's earlier point, salespeople, we have this lie that we've been telling salespeople for a long time that they're natural. And because salespeople believe they're natural, they don't believe they have to do it any other way, right? They believe that their way is the best. And so it's always process, because change is hard, right? And where a lot of founders and even sales leaders go wrong is they forget how long it takes to get good at something, right? So that rep has been doing something the same way for 10 years. That's why they're good at it now. So when you rolled out MedPick instead of BANT and you expect them to pick that up in 90 days, well, no, it doesn't work that way, right? And so I think that's where process gets most of the pushback, because they don't do a good job of explaining why. Very rarely do they explain why it will actually benefit the rep. It's always something about the company. So you wonder why the reps don't pick it up. Hey guys, this is going to cut our gross margin by 30%. I mean, it's going to make it harder for you to hit your quota and your OTE, but if we go public, it'll all pay off. The rep's dude, that's not going to pay my mortgage today, right? So people don't sell the process in a way that benefits the reps. So I'd say process probably gets the most pushback, but also a lot of companies try to rush it. They miss a number, something happens, they get a new investor. Okay, guys, we need to double down. Here's your new process, go. And they forget how long it takes for human beings actually to learn something and get good at it. A third of these books are about learning. It's about learning, how people learn, and skill development, because that's where a lot of teams miss. So I'd say process. Process is where I get the most pushback.
Yeah, no, great. I think I really like your phrase that as a sales leader, you're not hired for your Rolodex of contacts. It's your Rolodex of processes. So true.
Indeed.
Hey, I think this comment from Sonia is really great, too, about what she said. It's kind of funny because the majority of people work through this list backwards, right? Which is so true. I mean, I see that all the time. It's always about the product. And then...
Yep. Yeah. And you have to have a great product. Let's be honest. You have to have it, but you can't lead with it. Not when you're selling. You have a great product, but damn it, sorry, you have to be able to sell it the right way in order to actually go to market. So there's my preach moment. I'm out.
A lot, so you're okay. Damn it.
Okay, I was like, shoot, I'm the first one that says it, of course.
Like Aussies or UK people. We're okay.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Well, next up is Liz Hyman. So Liz is a highly regarded sales strategist and also has an excellent content pool on LinkedIn worth following. We're really excited to have you here, Liz. How are you doing today? Oh, you're on mute there.
I'm on mute. Now I'm unmuted. I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. And where are you calling in from?
I'm in Reno, Nevada. And I know the rest of the world says Nevada, but when you're here, you actually have to say Nevada.
Nevada. Gotcha. We get the same thing here with Calgary and Calgary. I mean, it's Calgary, but I might take some heat in the comments. Excellent. So, please, we're really looking forward to hearing what sales tools and resources would you recommend?
Well, I want to back up before I answer that, if you don't mind. I want to reiterate a couple of things. The first is, so I love process. I was in the world of sales, I was raised in process. So I can't say enough about how important it is. And that's really what I want to talk about. But before I do that, I want to talk about this idea of talking to our sellers in their language. I mean, our buyers in their language. You know, we all know what a CRM is. Imagine you as a CEO of a new company going, gosh, nothing would make me happier than to buy a CRM. And what I really want is one that does da, da, da. Really? What you want is I'm going to help you out here, Katie. What you want is your goddamn salespeople to fill the information in so you can predict what's going on, right?
I thought I was preaching. Get it. Let's go.
So when did you ever hear somebody go, they don't. They want a problem solved. So Katie, you are so right on about that. And by the way, I've actually heard CEOs say those words, so I'm not making them up. That's what they say. And then I also want to talk a little bit about the idea that CEOs, particularly new founders, have that magically you drop stuff in the top of the funnel and somehow stuff comes out the bottom. But it doesn't really work that way if you want a manageable team that you can scale and grow. And so when we talk about tools, the tools are great. Gosh, I mean, the list of tools that we've been given already, there's no point in me talking about others. Those are the core tools. Every single one of those are good tools. But what we know is that without the processes, the strategies, the systems underlying them, they're worthless, right? So we already said it. The first thing you do, you get a new company going, you get your CRM. And the very first thing I do when I start working with a company that's been around for 20 years is fix their CRM. Because they absolutely cannot make any sense out of it. It's not accurate. The information isn't consistent. It's garbled. There's pieces left out. There's stuff in there that nobody cares about. Everybody is following a different set of rules. And so when as CEO, I'm looking at this, I'm like, yeah, could you just go to each sales rep and tell me what they're really going to close this quarter? Like, that is not how this should work. And so for me, and it doesn't matter if you're building your playbook, you got to have the process first. If you're going to use SalesLoft, you got to start building your process first. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're going to start hiring, the conversation about cowboys I have with new CEOs all the time. You can hire a cowboy and you might luck out and they might know exactly what to do and go do it, but you cannot scale a cowboy, right? We do in the early stages want somebody who can rope and ride and brand and do all those great things. Yes, I'm in Reno, Nevada, so forgive me for my, but that's not scalable. Scalable is a process. So what I want to talk about is sales process and sales funnel, right? So for me, and you may call it a pipeline, but for me, if you've got that sales process and you've got it mapped out clearly, right? So you know this is the process. This is the process that the seller goes through. This is the process that the buyer goes through. Let's mesh it together, create a process, and now let's match that to the CRM. Let's make sure the CRM actually mirrors what that process is. And let's not get everybody else's nonsense mixed in there, because what we really need is for the sales team to accurately fill that out and to fill it out consistently only with the information that we need. Because if you tell a salesperson to fill out a whole bunch of extraneous things, guess what they won't do? Fill out a whole bunch of extraneous things. They're salespeople, right? So the first thing is to build the process. The second thing is to make it match your CRM and make sure you put gateways. Like these are the questions we ask. These are the activities that happen. And this is what has to occur before you can move it to the next stage. Now we need to sit down together and make sure everybody understands the rules and the leaders are reinforcing the rules. Because if I throw things in and I move things, I'm not going to put that in this stage because it's only at 30%. And this is 70%. So I'm just going to put it here. Well, now as a CEO, that means nothing to me. I can't look at it and make sense out of it. And I can tell you, I did funnel reviews, a funnel review, meaning sitting down with a sales rep and going step by step through all the stages of their funnel and asking about close dates and next actions. And is it really in this stage? And how many people have you met with, right? Because I also do B2B complex sell support. And so, you sit down and you say, well, when is this going to close? Oh, well, I don't know. Oh, it's going to close at the end of the month. Okay, so what's going to happen? Tell me the steps to get it to close. Oh, you mean it's not going to close for 3 months? Well, yeah. Okay, but your CEO just projected that and they just told the investors that was going to happen and it's not going to happen. So let's establish the rules. Let's do funnel reviews. Let's reinforce the rules. Now, as a CEO, I actually have a usable tool that gives me information I can predict from, I can manage from. I can look at my funnel. If I'm looking at it from top to bottom, I can look at my funnel and I can say, oh my goodness, I don't have enough coming in the top of the funnel. I better invest in marketing. Or, oh my goodness, if all this stuff closes, I don't have enough people to support it. I better invest. Or, oh, everything gets stuck in the middle. Maybe I don't have enough salespeople moving it through, or maybe they don't have the training they need, or whatever it is. But I can actually look at my funnel and make decisions about my business. So having those processes and a strategy, it doesn't do me any good to have a funnel if I have no idea what I want to have happen as a result, right? So process, systems, all of that matters. Having a strategy, all of that matters before you start implementing the tools. There are people that have a variety of tools. I know a bunch of founders who say to me, Liz, they'll call me Liz, I have a client and they want to use this tool, but they have no process. Will you help them build the process to put that tool in place? Right. So that's really my piece on, what tools do you need? Well, the tools that help you support and reinforce the processes that are going to help you scale your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of an entrepreneur struggling to figure out how to build their process, one option is to call you.
Of course.
But in terms of if they're trying to do it themselves, what advice do you have?
So one is keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? We use that old, that KISS. We try to get too many steps in the funnel. There's really 4 or 5, maybe 6 steps in the funnel, and they're all actions. This is prospect. During prospect, I'm prospecting. Okay. The next thing is qualify. During qualify, I'm actually qualifying. Qualified isn't a stage because I don't know as a sales rep what I'm doing. But if it's qualify as a stage and I can say, oh, this is what I do while I'm qualifying. I ask these questions. I make sure that they have this technology. I do these things. So now that it's qualified, I can move it down into verify or pursue or whatever you want to call it. And during that stage, I can ask these questions, do these activities, meet with these people. So you got prospect, qualify, verify, or pursue, or whatever you want to call it, and then close. Wait, I know. I forgot proposal. But guess what? Proposal is not a stage. Proposal is an activity that goes in a stage. So don't mix up your stages and your activities. So when people put proposals at different stages. I typically put it at close, but I've seen people do proposals at qualify. So figure out where the activities happen that go in the stages. Keep it simple, keep it short, and make it so that your sales team can easily determine what goes in what place.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. And I think you might have one of the most memorable quotes of this panel. You can't scale a cowboy. I'm loving the reactions on the comments there. Craig, Craig, could you comment? Do you still have your cowboy hat on? I think so. We'll see. Excellent. So next up, we have Brandon. And Brandon is a serial salesperson, author, podcast of sales secrets from the top 1%. He has made over $100 million in sales, so he's doing something right. He's currently the CEO and founder of Seamless.AI and is involved in the community. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing great. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Thanks for saving me for last. I got to bring the energy.
Exactly. Bring the energy on this afternoon. And then you all get to bring the energy in your AMA sessions following. So if you guys have any questions in the audience that are burning, know that you'll have the opportunity in just a little bit here to ask them one-on-one. Awesome. So Brandon, $100 million in sales. What's your secret to success?
Yeah. So first off, sales is the greatest profession in the world. Being an entrepreneur is the second greatest profession in the world. So as you go throughout this journey, It's the only profession where someone with no college degree can build a $1 billion company. My father built the first $1 billion software company, and he was working in Macy's and a construction software person. And so just realize that you could do anything in sales. And what I've learned from, him building the first $1 billion company to building a company that did 10 million when I was 18 years old for the gambling industry, to launching a text message marketing company that lost millions and everything I owned and going broke, to then getting into sales, selling for IBM and Google and doing 100 million is the first tool is your mindset. You have to have the belief. You have to dream big, have big goals, and believe that, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. I pitched 297 venture capitalists that told me no. And guess what? I just had this vision and belief that finding everyone that you need to sell to is the greatest competitive advantage in the world. And then when we finally closed funding and we built our product and launched it, we went from 0 to 8 figures in 24 months. We outpaced growth with much less funding than very large VC companies had invested. And you just have to have the mindset and belief that you're going to do whatever it takes. You're never going to quit. And I think your mind is super powerful. Now getting into the more strategic stuff, I believe it's kind of like Kevin had mentioned, DSTAB. So D stands for data. I believe you are one list away from the life you want, the family you want, the cars you want, the houses you want, the marriages you want. Everything you want in this life is just one list away. For you to sell your product to any single person, you need to first pick a niche and get rich. The person that tries to catch 3 rabbits catches no rabbits and starves to death in the desert or wherever they're at, in the woods, right? So you got to pick a niche and get rich. Who's the one persona in the one industry that I'm going to serve? And you have to obsess over that persona, their KPIs, their goals, their responsibilities, their dreams. How are you going to take them from this really bad place to this magical fairy unicorn island that makes all of their dreams and goals a reality? So you need the data. You need the list. The list is going to do that. Also on data, as an entrepreneur and as a salesperson, you have to track your KPIs every single day. And when I was a beginner entrepreneur and when I was a beginning salesperson, I didn't really understand the importance of the data. So I live in building lists all the time with my company, Seamless.AI. And then I'm also living in bare metrics 24/7. It's literally, I got 7 monitors here in my home office studio in Silicon Valley East, Midwest here in Columbus. And I've got bare metrics up, I've got Salesforce up, and I've got Seamless.AI up. So literally bare metrics, you need to be tracking your ARR, annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, lifetime value. What is my average deal size? What is my churn, my net revenue churn? What are my forecasts? You need to be living in your day-to-day KPIs, and you need to use a visualization tool like Barometrics or like what Doug had mentioned with that one platform, burnrate.io, to just visualize all this data so you know where you at today. And then check this out. If you improve 1% every day, you're going to improve over 300% for the year. Everyone overestimates what they can do in a day and underestimates what they can do in a week. You underestimate what you can do in a year, and you overestimate what you can do in a month. You name it. So if you just try to improve 1, 2, 3% every single day, you're going to have big gains. So data, number one. Number 2 is something that no one talks about, scripts. If you want to become badass at sales, if you want to generate $0 to $100 million in sales, if you want to build 0 to 8 figures in 24 months or less, and this is just from my experiences, you have to have the lists and the data, and then you need to have the scripts. And it's all about copywriting. And the best tools and technology to become an expert copywriter is this new technology company. I don't know if you heard of them, but it's called Amazon.com. You could literally go on Amazon and buy any single copywriting book out there. You need to understand how to write with words in call scripts, voicemail scripts, email scripts, social scripts, sales objection scripts, pitches, you name it, closes, to identify, connect, motivate, inspire, and acquire or close your ideal customers. And scripts, writing scripts are at the forefront of that second pillar, because you got to have scripts for everything, right? Cold calling, emailing, voicemails, social messages, LinkedIn messages. You've got sales objection scripts. I'm not interested. No budget. Send me more information. It's too expensive. Call me back later. What's your guarantee? I'm not interested. Talk to my boss. You name it. All of these things, if you realize that sales is a game of chess or poker, because my first company was in poker, if you know how to play Texas Hold'em and you know every single probability of every single hand, every position, you know how to best play every single poker hand. That's what becoming obsessed with script writing and writing scripts for everything you do. And I believed so much in this. I wrote 16 books for my own company and my own sales team to use. So I've got a script book for I'm not interested. I got a script book for it's too expensive. I got a social selling book that's 700 pages long of scripts. Like when Kevin talked about the processes, you got to have scripts for everything. So you want to write out all of your content. You want to save it. I recommend Google Docs as an easy way to save it and use it. And then if you have the budget, I do think Guru is badass. Hats off to Doug. I think that's an awesome technology, just-in-time learning and education. So that's data and scripts. Next, the third pillar is training. Training. You have to 1% every day. Like when Michael Jordan wins the championship, guess what? He's back out of the court tomorrow. Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl. He's back out training the next day. You have to be so obsessed in improvement. Like when I first started selling, I was obsessed with commission. And when I would pitch these prospects, I'd have commission breath. And all I would do is pitch the product. I wouldn't care about them. I didn't have a big mission. Then I was like, you know what? I'm going to become obsessed with my goal in life is to positively impact 1 billion people. I want to help 100,000 salespeople, marketers, and entrepreneurs generate over $1 million in sales. That's a massive mission. And then to accomplish that massive mission, you got to have the training and you got to be obsessed and in love with training and improving 1 to 5% every single day. And if you're always trying to improve, like you'll never become egotistical. You'll never not listen to people's advice. You'll never not try to learn and seek out the best training and the best expertise from anyone in the world. Like all of these experts I've learned from, whether it's online, on social media, joining Kevin's Patreon group or interviewing Doug at Emergence, Colleen following her blog, or Liz and Alice Hyman, they've got content for days. You have to be constantly training every single day, or buying Craig's Trigger Event book, you name it. You just have to love training. And then the last piece of it is activity. If you sit on your ass and you just leverage paralysis by analysis, you're not going to do anything. So at the very least, just think about minimum viable product, do minimum viable sales. I'm going to write 1 email script, 1 call script, 1 social script. I'm going to build 1 list, whether it's small or big, and I'm going to take action. I've lost hundreds of millions of dollars in deals, and I haven't built billion-dollar companies because of my paralysis by analysis, because I haven't taken enough action. And too many entrepreneurs and salespeople, and even me and you, everyone here, we're always overanalyzing things. What I've noticed is if you take massive action and then you apply the data, the training, the scripts, the different technologies, you're going to win. And you just have to put in the work every single day. I work 7 days a week. You don't go from 0 to $100 million in sales, become a millionaire in sales. You don't go from 0 to 8 figures in sales in 24 months without working your ass off. It's hard work. It sucks not going to the bar to hang out with your friends, or going out to dinner, or wasting the day on Netflix every Saturday and Sunday. There's so much sacrifice that goes into becoming the top 1%. But it's do you want to be average? Average equals easy, average equals like everyone else? Or do you want to become the best of the best that ever existed? And we've got one life in this opportunity. We've got this opportunity of a lifetime, and it only exists in this lifetime of an opportunity. So that would be, my recommendations to salespeople and entrepreneurs watching. And it all starts with the belief and the mindset. Set a big goal, try to positively impact a bunch load of people, and then leverage all the advice that everyone on this panel has shared, and just never quit. If you never quit, you never fail. It's that simple.
Love that. If you never quit, you never fail. And I think you raise a really good point on the minimum viable sales, because I think everything we're talking about right now is kind of, the most process oriented, for later stage, very experienced. And so it can probably sound a bit overwhelming with all these tools and processes and things to have thought about. But it's about just getting started. Like you said, write one script to start, get out there and have that MVS.
Yeah, get to your first 100 customers, build your list of 1,000 people, close 100 of them. Okay, next, what's the goal? I'm going to go from 100 to 1,000. All right, build your list of 10,000 people, close 1,000 of them, and then just keep going and going and going, and you'll get smarter, better, faster. You don't need to have it all figured out right at the beginning. Like, you'll get punched in the face 50 times. As long as you just keep getting back up in the ring, you'll never lose.
No, that's great advice. In terms of advice you wish you had been given earlier on in your career, what advice would that be?
Yeah, coachability. My dad was always coachable and so hungry and had this productive paranoia because he worked for all these software companies that wouldn't hire people without college degrees. And he somehow convinced a sales executive to join CA Technologies. And then they went from, 50 million to building the first $1 billion company in B2B SaaS and IPOing. And it was a huge success. And he was still coachable. And then I was highly coachable. And then I launched my first company. And when I was 18, 19, and 20, it did over $10 million in sales. And I got super cocky and super egotistical. Well, guess what? When I was at 22, I launched my second company for text message marketing when they made online gambling illegal. I didn't listen to any advisors. I didn't listen to investors like Doug. And they told me, don't get big office space, only build product, only sell in your dorm room. And I did the exact opposite. I got a 50,000 square foot office space that I couldn't afford. I hired 50 people that I couldn't afford. And we lost 3 to 4 million because we didn't know how to build a list or sell to the list. And just got my ass kicked by not being coachable and not being hungry to learn and improve. Well, that was great, though, because that happened at 22, 23, 24. So by the time I started selling for IBM and Google, I was like, I know nothing. I'm the dumbest person in the room. And I don't care if you're my number one top competitor or my best friend or the janitor. Anyone I talk to, I'm going to try to learn something from that I can use to skill up. Too many people look at anyone that they're talking to on social or in their network as like, well, I'm better than that person. Like, I'm only in competition with myself, and I'm trying to learn from every single person in the world. And I think if you can be coachable and hungry to always improve, you will become limitless in anything you try to achieve. That would be my number one piece.
Thanks for sharing that story. Yeah, that's great advice. So we're coming to a close here, and I just, before fielding any questions you may have, so please put any questions in the comment section there. But I just want to take a moment to remind everyone that once this closes in 5 minutes, then all the panelists will be in their own AMA rooms, and you're welcome to drop in to each of them. And then there's also a general networking room that you can jump into. And as Craig also just posted in the comments, showcasing that an exciting element of the Innovation Rodeo is that students are pitching for cash prizes. And so definitely check that out and support them in their journeys. But yeah, with that, we have a few minutes to just get reactions from everyone on the panel. Just opening it up, does anyone have any initial reactions to what their other panelists said?
I just said a lot of really smart people. It's fun also to hear. I'm a big believer in pattern recognition. And the faster you can pick up on patterns, the more successful you'll be. And so to hear, you've got people from different industries, different experiences, different backgrounds, but the patterns that you can pick up across all of them, if people got them, like, that's what you want to listen for, right? Because if there were no patterns here, then this would have been a very unsuccessful panel, because then you can't really walk with anything. But to hear all these patterns, like, there's consistencies here, and I hope people picked up on them.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Katie, especially around the process, that this is not something you can just hire a bunch of guys who come in with Rolodex and say, I can do this, I've done it before, without understanding if the process fits and it's going to fit the needs of your buyer. I think that that's such an important message.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to throw something out here real quick, though, so I don't mess this up. How do we get to our AMAs?
I believe it takes us all out once the time is up in 3 minutes, 5 seconds. And then you just enter your AMA room.
I'm really glad you asked that because I didn't know either. I was like,
there's no link,
but there's no link.
It actually doesn't. So
you just have to go back to the main room.
You have to exit. There's a little exit in the bottom, that little door.
It says
you actually have to exit, because I was watching yesterday and they sat there for a few minutes going, I thought it was supposed to end. So we'll just all exit quietly out the door. And then when you get back to, you have to go back to the main page. I think it takes you back to your main page, and then you can hit the button to enter your...
That's a super interesting observation. And I got one client that I thought was really smart through this lockdown, and they got all their salespeople trained up on every one of these platforms, because they said, we got to be ready and professional for whatever our clients want to use, right? Because they don't want to be in an important sales meeting and all of a sudden going, how do I get anywhere? How do I? Because there's so many of them now.
Yeah, it's true. And what's amazing to me is how many salespeople I'm coaching that freak out when it's not the one that they're used to using. I'm like, okay, well, let's just practice with this one. Just see what happens.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing we didn't touch on is obviously with COVID, it's changed the game a little bit, but also not. If anyone has any last thoughts.
Entrepreneurs, quick piece of advice, like don't be scared to reach out to people. I've connected with some of the best venture capitalists, some of the best customers, some of the best speakers, book writers, experts, just from reaching out. Use a platform like Seamless.AI, get their emails and cell phones or whatever you got to do, find their contact info and just take action and reach out to them. Like when I wanted to interview Kevin, I'm like, hey man, I love everything that you do in the sales space. I'd love to interview you for our new Sales Secrets book. And when you reach out and you compliment, you ask for advice and you deliver value to help them, everyone will reciprocate. If you reach out to Doug trying to raise venture capital, if you say, hey, we've got this traction, we've got this ARR, MRR, we've got this really unique product market fit. I think it would be great for you guys at the Series A level. Would love to chat. Like Doug's always on the lookout for great companies, so all you have to do is reach out and don't be scared to reach out to anyone, a prospective customer, an investor, you name it. All of my success was just from the majority, 99% cold prospecting.
Yeah. And I want to just
all my success.
I just want to add to that. What I've heard a lot of salespeople say is nobody wants to talk to me right now. And they're right. Nobody wants to talk to you about your product right now. What they do want to talk to you about is their problems right now. So we go back to what Katie was saying and really focus on people and their problems in this time.
Thanks so much, Liz. Great last words to leave it on. Thanks, everyone.